Did you ever notice if you know a story about somebody, you know them, you'll remember that story about them? If you've ever heard a speaker that really moved you, probably the thing you're going to remember most is the story. You might forget the person's name, you might forget what they look like, but you're going to remember the stories they told. I remember a story about bees when I was a kid. I remember the day my dad left. I also remember a story from a speaker who told about a boy on crutches. I remember another speaker telling a story about a girl and the vanishing Kleenex. It was funny. It was really funny. I remember the story. The story about a boy who had to protect his brother from his mother. Stories help us remember people. They help us connect to people. If you're trying to build community, stories are a great way to do that. If you want to build community, learn people's stories. I remember a story, This is something a cardiologist told his medical students. This is something a cardiologist told his medical students. If you want to learn medicine, you have to learn people's stories. That's brilliant. If you want to learn medicine, you have to learn their stories. I thought if I wanted to be a better teacher, I had to learn my students' stories. If you want to be a better leader, you have to learn the stories of the people you're leading. And if you want to build community, remembering and learning and getting to know them through their stories is what's going to do that for you. I remember a story about red and white beads. There was a speaker that I went to go see when I was 15 years old. 15. Now, I'm a ways past that now, so it's amazing that I can remember it, but it was 50 years ago. This man stood on stage. He had us captivated. We were laughing. We were having a good time. We were getting a message. He had a girl come up on stage, and this is the one that it was the vanishing Kleenex. We all saw where the Kleenex went. He would take his hand and throw it behind her, but she never saw it. He didn't make fun of her, but he had us all having fun. Once she figured it out, it was okay for her too. He talked about a lot of things that day, but this is 50 years ago, and I still remember this story. After he got off the stage, a young girl came up to him and said, "That was fantastic. I really got something out of this. I enjoyed it. I was laughing. You made me cry. I really got something out of it." And this man's name was Dr. Earl Room. He said, "Well, thank you. I really appreciate it." He said, "Thank you. I really appreciate your saying that." She said, "I'd like to give you a gift." He said, "Okay, but you really don't have to." She said, "No, this is really important. I want to do this." She said, "Could you hold out your hand?" She said, "Could you hold out your hand?" He did. She took this long string of beads. It was red beads, white beads, and she placed it in his hand. And he looked at her quizzically. "Thank you. What is this?" She said, "Well, by first appearance, it's just a string of beads." He said, "Right." She said, "But if you wrap it around your hand in a certain way, what it'll spell is the word hope." She did that for him. Sure enough, it spelled hope. He gave her a hug, and they said goodbye, and she made his day. About a year later, he stopped at her school. He happened to be in the area. He stopped at her school. He said, "Hey, I'd like to see this person." The secretary said, "I'm sorry, she's not here." "Oh, was she absent today?" "No, about 3 weeks ago, she took her own life." Dr. Room was devastated. Somehow, that young girl who was so vibrant and so alive and so passionate about things forgot that there was hope for herself, forgot or didn't know how to communicate what her needs were. He spent his entire career reaching out to people like that, reaching out to teenagers like that, because he knew that if he heard their stories and he validated them and he showed them empathy, that he could give them hope like this girl had given to him. When we hear people's stories, when we find out what's going on with them, by giving them a chance to tell their story, sometimes it changes them. When we have a chance to learn people's stories, sometimes it changes us. That's really significant. Sometimes it changes us just because we've taken the time to learn somebody else's story. We've connected. We've built community. So if you're looking to build community in your organization, as a leader, you want to build community. If you're looking to up your retention rates, keeping good employees, you don't want them to leave your organization, let's have a conversation. You and I can talk. Learning people's stories is a really significant way to do that because it helps people feel connected. It helps people understand and think that you care about not just the work they do, but the person they are. And that you can see that by hearing their stories and giving them some empathy, they come back to work a little bit less burdened, or perhaps they come back a little bit more inspired. Reach out to me at john@johnnepper.com. Let's have a talk about how to build community by learning people's stories. People are dying to be heard. Are you listening? I'm John Nepper.